Hello, my name is Jenny and welcome to my studio. I'm going to be demonstrating for you today how I make a slab built bowl using a leaf form as my template. And I wanted to show you the finished product. This is my bowl that I have fired. I bisque fired it and then glaze fired it. There's attached a foot ring on the bottom. I fired it to about cone 6 using Amico's seaweed glaze. So this is what we're going to do today. Thanks for joining me. Let's get started. Here, just so that the contrast is a little bit better, you'll be able to see the clay against my background a little bit better. I've got a little container of water. I probably won't need this. I've got a sponge. I've got a knife. I've got my blue rib. I have a rolling pin, but you could use any round object that is smooth. So you could use a mailing tube, or you could use even the end of a paintbrush or something round. And then I have some magazines, different thicknesses. So I'm just going to hold them here so you can see. I've decided that I need 2 of them stacked on each other on either side in order to roll my clay a certain thickness. So I'm going to move some of these objects out of my way that I don't need right now and put these magazines here. Let's see, like that. I'm going to put this end here. I feel like this side's a little thicker than this one, but I'm pretty sure it won't matter too much. So I've just taken a slice of clay from the top, and you can see it's already kind of flattened, so I've done a little bit of flattening already just with the heel of my hand pushing the clay. And what I'm going to do now with my rolling pin is I'm just going to start rolling this clay using the magazines as guides. So now I've got a really long piece, but my goal is to make a plate that fits this. So actually that's pretty good, but it's still really thick. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to roll in this direction a little bit, just a little bit, because I don't want to change my size. Now I've got these here, and I'm pressing down harder in order to get a good thickness going. Now I'm going to check on the sides, see if it looks like it's fairly even. It does look like it's fairly even. So now what I'm ready to do is take my leaf and I'm ready to press it into the clay. And rather than pressing it with the rib down, I'm going to press this face down into the clay. And I'm actually going to take my knife tool and I'm going to cut off this stem. And I'm going to cut off a little bit of this stem on the back, which isn't going to show, but takes up a lot. Oh, I have a timer going. Let's stop that timer. Okay, I'm running my kiln at the same time. Out in the garage is running. So I'm just going to take away a little bit of this extra plant material that I don't need. And we'll see how this works, because I feel like that's just too thick. So using my knife tool, you see how sharp they are. Just taking away a little bit of that green material. Okay, I'm going to find a good spot to push this down. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of free form it. I'm not going to worry about the magazines anymore. I'm just going to apply pressure so that this leaf gets pushed down really well into the clay. Okay, so there we go. And it's still kind of on the thick side. So I'm just going to press it a little bit this way, roll it a little bit this way, keeping my pressure even at all times. All right, now I'm going to pick my slab up and I'm going to peel it up gently. I'm just going to reposition it a little bit. Now I kind of have to make a design decision. Do I want to have this be a leaf-shaped bowl, or do I want the leaf print in the bowl? And I've decided that I want a leaf-shaped bowl. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my knife tool, or in this instance I'm going to use a needle tool, and I'm going to cut around this leaf, but I'm not going to cut all those little jagged edges. I'm going to let those be part of the bowl, and I'm cutting around this side, cutting around here. I've got that little bump, which I'll probably end up smoothing out, and there. Okay, so I've cut all the way through. Now I'm going to pull away this extra clay. It's beautiful clay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this guy over for a second. And you see I have these kind of little marks here. I don't want those later. So what I'm going to do is just take a minute with my blue rib. Hopefully your blue rib is cleaner than mine is. Mine seems to have stuff on it. And I'm just going to smooth that clay down and smooth the edges a little bit. And then I'm going to take my sponge, which is damp, and I'm just going to put a little bit of moisture on there like that. Smooth, smooth, smooth. Doesn't that look good? So when this goes into my form, this bowl form that I made, it's going to lay in here. I'm going to now put the bowl form here, and I'm going to just let this go in here, and I'm going to gently press it in. Now this bowl form is made out of bisqued clay, and so it is going to absorb some of the water from the clay, and it's going to release this piece very easily when I'm ready to pull it all out. All right, and just going to neaten up my edges a little bit, although I'm going to do much more of that later, and just let that rest until it is leather hard. Okay, so I've let this sit for a little while. I'm going to now ease it out of the bowl, and hopefully it will retain its shape. I'll just shake it out. There it goes. And you can see I've got this neat little bowl shape, and what I'm going to do is add a foot to it. I'm going to start by taking a little piece of clay and rolling. I'm going to first press it into a nice shape that I can roll into a coil. And with even pressure, I'm going to just roll a coil. Then I'm going to get it round into a little ring here, have those ends overlapping, and I'm going to cut through them with a needle tool, or with a knife tool, so that I have a very nice little ring that I can then score and slip onto the bottom of my bowl. So when I talk about scoring and slipping, this is the way that we join clay. I've got my foot ring ready to go, but I can't just put it on here and hope that it stays. I can't even press it down and hope that it stays. What I have to do is ruffle up the surfaces of both sides of clay that I want to join, and then add a little moisture to it, and then the two will stick through the kiln firing and the contracting as moisture leaves the clay. So I'm going to do that by scoring, and when I score, there are fancy tools that you can buy that do scoring for you. I'm just using this giant toothpick stylus, and I'm going to score both sides of my clay, and then I'm going to add just a little bit of moisture to the clay, and then I'm going to compress the two pieces together so that I press as much air out as possible and get a really good fit here. And in the meantime, what I'm going to do is get a smoothing tool, and I'm going to just take a little bit of clay on the inside of the ring and push it into the body of the bowl so that I'm really sure that when this goes into the kiln and it gets up to a couple thousand degrees, it doesn't decide to pop off on me, which would be very depressing. So once I've joined it on the inside, I can then make the decision of whether or not I want to also join it on the outside edge. In this case, I'm going to leave it looking like a little donut because I like the way that looks. And I'm going to let it sit up for a while, and then I'm going to put it down on the table surface, and I'm just going to make sure that that's nice and level. But my clay is still a little too soft right now, so I'm going to leave it drying on its form a little bit longer. So what happens next? You're going to let your piece dry out slowly. You're going to put it somewhere, drape a little plastic over it, and let it sit and rest for a little while until it dries out. And then you're going to fire it, add a bisque firing, and then after that you're going to be ready to glaze. And so check out my videos on tips for glazing and drying your clay and all of that. Okay, thanks for joining me, you guys.